Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the McShin Foundation's award-winning recovery podcast, Get in the Herd. Today we've done something a little different today. I've brought in a new person to recovery who has experience in recovery, has also participated in a McShin Foundation jail program, and comes to us and is now a participant here in our intensive house. And so I thought it would be awesome to have Kyle Sunday join us, and I love the name too, Kyle Sunday. It's like that right there is a DJ name, right?
Absolutely.
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 Kyle. Great to have you, Kyle, and also our special guest today, coming to us from Montana, where I believe it's still frozen over, right? Yeah.
Actually, it's like 90 here today. It was unusual. So.
Oh. Well, all right. Well, you're warmer than we are. We have Lela. Is it Yale?
Lela Yael.
Yael.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
You can call me Lela though.
Lela Graham from Montana with the Montana Recovery Advocacy Project, etc. So, first, Kyle, welcome to the show. What brings you here today?
Thank you for having me. What brings me here today is I'm ready to find a new life. I went through the jail program at RSW, and I'm not going to lie to you. When I first joined that jail program, it was for the coffee and donuts and the movies they watched. You know what I'm saying? But I stuck around long enough, and I finally heard the message, and I realized it was time. I'm getting too old for this life, man. I've got responsibilities, and I've got a family I got to take care of, and I don't want to go back and staying at that program. I was lucky enough to be one of the ones that received a scholarship, and I wanted to fulfill that scholarship and come here and do everything I could in my power just to stay sober and find a new way to live, because I'm 31 years old and I've lived more of my life high than I have sober. So this new way of life, it's not easy, but this is the best tool I've ever been given and had the chance to, receive, thanks to, McShin and Cricket and John. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah. And so, Lela, when we talk about, and I know that you're a recovery advocate and a person in recovery, and I'll let you tell your story. I'm sorry, but I know that you do a lot of work with social justice, faith, and recovery, and how that interrelates. And I love that. And when you hear Kyle talk about what he's doing, what bubbles up for you? And first of all, why are you here? Actually,
I'm here because I have I went to McShin a couple times. I couldn't stay clean out in Virginia, and I moved back home to Montana. I have been without mood in my alter substance since October 12th, 2016. I lived in Virginia for 12 years. I'm a UVA grad. And I'm so grateful that Kyle's here, and Kyle has found this hopefully new way of life. I think a lot of people find recovery within, an institution. I am so grateful that there are programs like McShin in jail programs. Out here, there are some programs for getting into recovery, but they're not as pervasive as it is out in Virginia. So I'm just grateful that you found an opportunity to do something different with your life.
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah. So your work, right? And so you are alumni of McShin, and what was it like as a participant? When were you here, and what was it like?
I was there in 2014. A couple times. So I went in and I was there for like 21 days, and I wasn't ready to stop, and I wasn't willing to give up my friends or who I thought were my friends. And I went out for a little while, and I came back into McShin I was there for 30 days, and then left and went back out for a month, and then decided to, with encouragement of a few people, told me to just like leave Virginia and go. I actually had a couple friends die, and I called my mom and I was like, I need to get out of here. I'm not going to make it, because I saw the writing on the wall, and I moved back to Montana. I'm a 5th generation Montanan, and I came back home, and I was here for a couple of years, and I had a recurrence, and then that was October 12th, 2016, my last date of use.
Hmm.
Well, the 11th.
Yeah. It's funny because I think about my recovery date and I realize, I sit and I analyze and I'll think, well, I probably wasn't actually clean for a few more days after that. And at some point I just sort of gave up you know what, this is my date. I'm going to keep that date. I love that date. We're not going to change that date. But because
I have it to the day after the last use. That's what I,
as a new person to recovery, who has experience with recovery in the past, you've brought a lot of knowledge to the table, and you obviously had a lot of knowledge when you were, sitting in those cells. What are the challenges you're facing now as a new person in recovery, getting into recovery here as the pandemic is sort of waning, but also, while things are still kind of closed? What are the challenges you're facing right now, and how have you overcome those challenges, Lela?
One of my biggest challenges is the humility, because with being in recovery before, I had all these people seeing me do good, and I was clean for over a year and I was doing good, and then I messed it all up. So coming back into recovery and having to admit to everybody, I screwed up again, it was hard because I don't like to admit that I'm wrong. Absolutely not. And that's one of the biggest challenges is getting back into that, creating a whole new network of people and getting another sponsor. And it's just, I have to humble myself sometimes and realize, not all of us get this chance to have a second chance. I could have easily, when I went back out, not showed back up here, but I'm here now, and I've got to kind of get out of my head in that sense, because my mind for me is my biggest enemy. I think too much. I think too much about what people think about me, and that will stop me from pursuing my own recovery in a sense, because I don't want them to think, oh, well, look, he's here doing this for this reason, or he's going to go back out because look what he did last time. I've got to let all those thoughts go, and I got to be here for me and my recovery, because nothing else matters. It's not their life that's on the line. It's mine. And that's one of the biggest things I got to get over is just humbling myself and being able to get through that. That's one of my biggest challenges.
Yeah. What do you hear from that, Lela?
I think humility is a big part of something is really a huge component to maintain this life. But what I was saying for what I've done, for the pandemic is I had to really get in touch with my spiritual practice. I do yoga and, meditation, all this stuff. So I really had to kind of, because I knew there wasn't going to a lot of people outside I wasn't going to see. So it was a lot of inward to how do we get adjusted, how we get grounded, or I get grounded in, to move forward. So, I did a lot of, read a lot of stuff. I took long walks. I did, and then I did a lot of Zoom meetings, more Zoom meetings than ever. But really, I had to really get grounded in, my spiritual practice to maintain this recovery and everything. That was the key for me. So.
Yeah. So what do you hear, Kyle, when Lela's talking about getting grounded in that spiritual practice? What do you hear for yourself there?
Well, I'm going to tell you this right now. When I first started getting locked up, I had that jail recovery all day. God, please get me out of here. I'll never do it again. I'll read the Bible. I'll do this. And then, just like the program, I stuck around and I started reading my Bible. And that NA is grounded in spiritual principles. It doesn't say you have to have your higher power has to be God. You just have to have a higher power. And, for me, sitting in that jail cell, being able to read the Bible and being in the program with like-minded people who had, not all of their higher powers were God or religion. For me, when I had trouble with religion, because it was always crammed down my throat, I made my higher power while I was struggling karma. That was my higher power. You do to others as you want done unto yourself. You get what you give. And that's what helped me while I was struggling with that issue, because I'm a see it to believe it kind of person. So the religion part kind of struggled a little bit, but I stuck around and it worked. I kept coming back, and here I am. So
I think a lot of what, it's funny because Jamie Baker, who is a longtime viewer of the show, he asks a question here, and I think it relates to what you both just talked about. He says, Jamie says, Kyle, do you find that the definition of doing the next right thing has changed as you grow in recovery? And that's a good question, I think, for really all three of us. So I guess, Kyle, you want to answer that, and then we can all answer that.
Absolutely. See, for me, the day you stop working for your recovery is the day that you die. It doesn't matter if you're just doing one small step every day to better yourself. That's what we got to keep doing, because the day that we stop working towards getting better, towards learning our recovery and about our disease, the day you stop working towards that is the day you're going to die. There's a lot of stuff that comes with this addiction and in recovery. And for me, I try to take in all the information that I can, and I want to do the next right thing, because that's not something I'm used to during my addiction. You know what I mean? I'm not used to doing the right thing. And these days I feel good doing that. And I can look at the end of the day at myself and say, hey, I did something good. I bettered myself. What can I do tomorrow to make that better?
How do you respond to that, Lela?
I think doing the next right thing in recovery really changes. I think at the beginning we were really focused on just not using.
Yeah.
And for me, like now, I mean, 4.5 years, a little more than 4.5 years, I work on my recovery a day, but it looks a lot different than it did the first year I was in. Like I was focused on meetings and, and step work and, all that stuff. And now I'm like, how can I give back to my community? What can I do? Like, I'm still going to meetings, I'm still doing step work, but I'm not doing nearly as much every day. I'm like holding on to the grips of that. Like, I'm like, can I pick up trash? Can I meet someone who helped them with housing, and then, go for a walk with someone who needs it, like help someone, groceries or something like that. It means it's a lot different these days. I'm still maintaining my recovery, but I'm doing outside, not just staying in the rooms and holding on, to dare not to use,
We
like today I'm
principles in all our affairs.
yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So, it looks a lot different.
Yeah. I appreciate what you just said, because for me, the next right thing, or doing what's next, and for me is not popping off at my neighbor who some of you who might have listened last week know that I had a little situation with my neighbor, but it also means Justin and I were at the store yesterday together, our producer Justin, and we talked about putting the grocery cart back in its spot, and how that really defines, but it's a silly,
the butterfly effect, right?
Right. And right. Yeah. But it is right. The next right thing, and even if it just seems like, to me, it's like, well, duh, of course I'm going to do that. How many times do you go to the grocery store and see random carts just sitting out there? So obviously,
and someone may have seen you, right? And push the cart back and like, oh, next time I'm going to put the cart back. And that's,
right.
That's the whole butterfly effect, right? That's, people, I think people know I'm in recovery because I have used to carry around stickers of this, I'm recovery, and I go like everywhere I go, and I would have them on. And so I'm a little, I'm out, so I need to order more. But and so people and they watch me, and they know that, that's who I so I have to,
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I'm always wearing, it seems, some kind of recovery T-shirt, right? And nowadays, I even have a bumper sticker, a McShin bumper sticker on my car too, and that actually makes me think about when I'm driving. Am I speeding? And of course, I have a problem, with a lead foot, and I inherited that from my father. So I have to be mindful of that, because the consequences. I've had some consequences with that recently too, and so because of that, I'm now more mindful. I have that sticker on my car, but also the next right thing is actually to follow the law and to not speed. And even
that's work in program with honesty, right?
Right, exactly. And making sure I'm practicing my principles in all my affairs. And to Jamie's question, it also means paying my taxes, filing things. Like I just got my property taxes in Richmond City, and I'm like, it's for my car, but I need to pay that, and that's and
Self-sufficiency.
exactly, yeah. And those are the things today. It's like, getting here and getting to work and doing the things. That's what the next right thing for me is. And of course you hit it on the head for me, just not using, just not using, and I make a commitment in the morning. I don't know about y'all, but like I think about that in the morning. I'm like, all right, you know what, today I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do the stuff that I used to do, the shit, I can say shit, that I used to do back in the day. And then I start my day with gratitude. So Jamie also asks, oh, this is a good question, Jamie. Jamie says, what advice would you give to anyone that may have tried recovery and has relapsed? So I guess I'm not sure if Jamie means has relapsed and come back or is currently in active addiction, but I think from either perspective, I think this is a good question. Do you have any suggestions, Lela, for somebody?
I mean, we have a brain disease, right? It's not uncommon for us to have a recurrence of our disease. So like, people have I have a hard time when people, we have a recurrence occasionally, and come back. It's a brain. It happens, sneaks up on us. You know. There's tools to, stop the recurrence or end the recurrence, but it's a recurrence. So, so it's not, we have the tools, just come back and, to contact your friends, the people, just like pop into a meeting or like hit a Zoom meeting. We have ways to do that. No one, I actually believe more people, like when they come back in after a relapse, don't. They're like, welcome back, come sit with me. At least that's what I do. If I know people have come back, I'm like, hey, I'm glad to see you. You want to sit down? Can I, do you have my number? Like, call me anytime, So
how do you looking at Jamie's question, what do you think, Kyle? My biggest thing is don't be afraid to ask for help, because I know when I relapsed, I didn't want to call nobody. I didn't want to tell anybody. I so badly wanted help to stop. Like I started going through it again. And I'm like, man, I don't want to be doing this, but I'm not going to call my sponsor and tell him I got high, or I'm not going to call somebody and ask them for help because I'm too scared. I don't want them to judge me. Don't be scared to ask for help, because in all reality, if you're in the rooms and you have friends in addiction, a lot of us have relapsed and a lot of us have made it through that. So the advice you can get from the next person about how they got through it, and as addicts, we love helping each other. It may not seem like that. Your disease might say, well, he's going to judge me and, they're not going to want me to come to the meetings. That's absolutely not true. We have to be fearless in wanting to stay sober, and in relapse, you just got to ask for help. Talk to somebody. It doesn't matter who it is, ask for help and you will get it. It's the most terrifying thing to do. Trust me. I know, I've been there, but that's what you got to do. Otherwise, we're going to die.
Yeah. That's, and you're right.
That's the bottom line. The death is so possible, So.
Lela, your work now, as a recovery advocate, the things that you do, tell us, I know that you're involved in the Montana Recovery Advocacy Project, just like we are here in the Virginia Recovery Advocacy Project. We're sort of two branches of the same tree, essentially. But I know you do other things in your daily life. What is it that you do on the regular, and what do you want to do more of?
So, with Montana Advocacy Project right now, our team is trying to get more, or any sober living facilities. Most of them are attached to the DOC, and they're not just there's no Oxford houses in Montana because it's rural. They don't allow, or I don't know. And so there's a few, they're like mostly run by offshoots of the DOC. So there's not a lot. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to get more people involved in, getting sober living facilities open around the state. And just getting, that's a hard thing. Like last year, it was me and the Recovery Advocacy Project. I had a try to get a lot of people, but the pandemic kind of like hit us. And this year we have like 5 people on our team. We have a cool woman that runs the addiction and recovery ministry at one of the churches here in Missoula. Am I having feedback? Sorry.
No, that's on our end.
Okay. So, we have a variety of people on our team this year. It's really exciting. But on behalf of my, I started this organization on Independence Rock Coalition, Faith, Social Justice, and Recovery. And so we, it's kind of been down slow in the last couple months. So we just did social distance walking clubs this year. We tried to get a lot of people out. We had a lot of recovery people out. That's what I do. I walk. I choose not to own a car for, political reasons. I'm a vet and I've lost a lot of people in Iraq. So I'm like, as my politics, I choose not to own a car. I live in Missoula and I can walk everywhere on this free bus system. So I can choose not to own a car.
Wow.
So, I walk like 40 to 50 miles a week, but I walk longer. Like on my birthday, I walked 27 because I wanted to get a new Fitbit badge. So I walked from here to like almost, because that's what I do, right? I walk. So
fitness goals today, right?
Right. So it was like my 55,000 badge from a Fitbit. So I'm like, for my birthday, I'm going to get my 55,000 foot badge. So
that's
go figure, right?
Yeah.
So we did that and got 10 to 12 people out once, every other day walking around. There are different people. We have a lot of walking paths around. And so they just walked. And then we did a book club, recovery book club. We did for 3 months we did Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I don't know if you ever read that book, but it's badass. And she's a person in recovery too. It's called Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's badass.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, and she's a person in recovery as well. So yeah, but we're gonna start more, like now that pandemic's open, we're gonna do lots more stuff. But my board is, reconvening, and it's our different projects. But a lot of them do letters to people who are like we get send books behind bars and letters, people who want contact or innocence, kind of an innocence project, but like people who like that people who are coming out of the system that need housing. That's what we work on as well. Help with that, employment. People they could use some. Montana is different. Like they can vote while they're in the pre-release.
Yeah. Okay.
If they're in prison, they don't get vote, but they only get their rights suspended. Not,
we're working on that here in Virginia. Yeah.
Well, it was weird. I was like, "What do you mean you can vote now?" And that's exciting. So, yeah,
I was excited when I got my voting rights restored before the presidential election last year. I was excited.
Yeah, because I have the stickers, and people are like, "Oh, I can vote." I'm like, "Well, I thought you were, no, I can vote." Like, okay, cool.
I think it's only Virginia and Florida that. Well, anyway,
a lot of the southern states.
Yeah, but well, so pivoting on this, right? Talking about challenges faced by individuals, re-entering from a jail or prison, but also entering into recovery for the first time. And we talked about humility, and I love that the tangible. Yeah, no, I think you know where I'm going with this. What do you have to say on that,
I
Lela?
was gonna say, like, I sorry, this might seem true, but I think a lot of people like how to keep your house cleaned, how to do laundry, and take a shower and brush your teeth, right?
Yeah.
We might not talk about this, but I think I know when I was using the last couple of times, I'm like, I remember I got back and I was like, when's the last time I took a shower? That might be gross, but I'm like, I don't remember, I didn't brush my teeth at all during major active addiction. I made a couple of times, but I remember to put that on, to take a shower, to brush my teeth, to do laundry, to wash the dishes, to like take the dog outside. These things, like, I didn't do them at all during like the height of active addiction, right?
Yeah.
So you might have to relearn them or just get in a habit of doing them. I don't think we talk about that, when people are coming in, like, this might be a challenge. You might get stuck, like how to wash your dishes, but we do it. It's like what we have to do, self-sufficiency, right? It sucks. But you gotta, those little things could overwhelm me. I'm like, what the hell,
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think we can talk about stuff like that and be like, this is going to be a challenge to do day-to-day activities. I mean, possibly.
Well, and yeah, how do you relate to that? So that's you just sparked a whole bunch of ideas in my head, Lela.
Look, everything she said is absolutely correct, because for me, because I just got out of prison, so I'm used to having a set schedule and doing my own thing. Now, when I got to this intensive house, they're like, well, we're giving you a chore and you got to do this and do that. I'm like, it's just hard enough for me to wake up in the morning and make a cup of coffee. Like,
Did you had a phone when you got here too, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I do not anymore.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yes, but that's probably for the best, because my focus needs to be on while I'm here, not on Facebook, because that's what I'd be doing. I'm not going to lie to you. But
Facebook, huh?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like she said, learning how to do these things sober, because like I said, I spent 17 years high. I don't think there was a thing I ever did that I wasn't high. You know what I mean? That I was sober. So having to, I get frustrated having to fold my clothes. I'm like, this shit sucks. And it's like, you got to fight through it, because this is what we're going to have to deal with the rest of our lives. Like, I don't like doing the simplest shit, because it sucks while you're sober, but that's what we have to do. And that's what we have to tell people. And that's why I'm glad I'm at this house, because, I've only been there maybe less than 2 weeks, and I'm getting situated. I do my chores in the morning. I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, make everybody coffee, do some dishes, just to try and get into a routine to keep myself from falling back into that laziness. Like, you know what I mean? I need to do these regular life skills that we're supposed to be doing it, and it's rough sometimes, man. But if you keep going, you're going to get it. Take it from me, because it's a pain in the ass, but I'm getting there.
I think, and I talk about this all the time, and I think for me, one of the greatest parts of my recovery, and certainly today, to this day, the most spiritual time of my day is when I'm making the bed in the morning. And I know that some admiral somewhere did a little video on that. And blah, 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 blah. Yeah, right. But here, when I was a participant at McShin, we had to make our beds. And so, and they checked and they looked, and in fact, my house leader, when I first moved here, was Justin, our producer. And, and I wouldn't say he was a hard ass, but he did his job, and he made sure that we, because he's a person in recovery too. And he made sure, he held us accountable for that. And I still make my bed every day. I didn't do that when I was in active addiction all the time. There were times.
Did you have a bed?
I swear I was just about to say the same thing. I didn't even have a bed.
That was
active addiction.
Well, that's the thing. When I'm making my bed, that's so funny. You know exactly that, because when I'm making my bed and I start, I'm getting my gratitude in there right there. I mean, I'm always grateful, and but my action right there is, I'm grateful for this bed. There were so many times where I would wake up and not know where I was, who was with me, or I didn't have a bed. I mean, I slept in the van a few times. I almost always found somewhere to land, but the things I had to do to get to that point weren't fun. And so, yeah, that's why that to me grounds me, I hope, every morning in the gratitude. I make a decision in the morning when I wake up. You know what? Today I'm not going to screw up my life. More so, with drugs and alcohol anyway. I'll find other creative ways to screw up my life. But with drugs and alcohol, if I put that out of my system for the day, I have a better shot of getting other things right. And then, making my bed. Now, it's not always the first thing I do in the morning. Usually it's probably down the low, I get coffee, pee, all the things. But when I do sit and make my bed, or stand there and make my bed, that's when my gratitude starts. Well, that's when my gratitude is really in action, and I'm really focused on that. And this morning, like for me, I've been struggling. With my recovery recently, and we talked about humility earlier, and I actually I switched sponsors day before yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, and I love my previous sponsor, and in fact, he's still a part. He'll be a part of my life, and certainly in my network. But what I recognized was that I just wasn't talking to my sponsor, and so I found somebody who I relate to, and I think has more direct, anyway, the point of this is, because of that change, when I texted her yesterday morning, I said, I was saying, please, we'd met and blah 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 blah. And I've known her for a few years in my recovery now. And I said, would you please sponsor me, after we'd met and talked a few weeks ago? And she said, yes. And I said, this is happening. I'm acting out in certain ways in my life, and I'm scared. And I said, I'm scared. Like, that's all I said. And it was and I've said it a few times to a few people, but it's the first time I think I've said that in years. And that was really powerful for me. I'm really grateful I'm able to do that these days, because, I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go back to those things. And so, you talk about faith, and I know faith is an important part of your recovery. And I need that too, so what do you think?
I think that's fantastic to admit fear, and like, they're scared is like, that's unheard of in a lot of our histories. So
Yeah.
It's a good move to growth. So, because growth can change us a little bit. Yeah, I love that.
I'm so happy to be able to say that and have the faith that, my faith says that, I don't have to be perfect every day. Like, in active addiction, one of my biggest hangups for me, and actually, if you look in my office right this second, one of my biggest hangups is this desire to be perfect. I have to do it perfectly, and I'm a person of extremes. I'm either amazing or not. and so that slowing of the pendulum, that stopping or putting, finding that little bit of balance, so it's a little more like this instead of wildly swinging.
Yeah, the spiritual principle of balance is a good tool. Because I always say the second step is for instance, it's that I get, and what I've been taught is that, one of the spiritual principles that's not really discussed very much is balance from the second step. And I go back to that when I'm swinging to those pendulums. I'm like, what's the restoration of sanity, but what's the balance of that?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the grounding, the balance. I like that spiritual principle. So,
Robert Legg, a really longtime listener and a good friend, he says, bringing up your actual what you do on a daily basis, Lela, it looks like Montana has a pretty progressive Good Samaritan law that precludes sanctions revoking probation or parole. Does it also preclude charges against the person who may have supplied the drugs that may have caused the OD? And is the public well aware enough that people don't delay or not call 911? Good question.
That there was some controversy of whether or not that in this legislature. I think that it failed. Yeah, I'm not sure how that worked out. I'll get his information and be able to follow up, because I do believe that it's that there is a penalty for supplying the drugs that OD'd. I believe that's still on the law. Narcan, there's not a lot of Narcan around Missoula. Lots in Billings, lots in Helena. There is a district, a group that's gives Narcan training, but they've been closed pretty much. Their offices has been closed from the pandemic, so that will pick up, I'm sure. You can get it over the counter in Montana.
Oh wow,
so that's awesome. But there's been a lot of. I've put on, and a lot of people have been, we've been like, there's some stuff out, don't use alone, carry Narcan. Lots of overdose in the last week in Missoula, at least. And then we don't really have we haven't really been hit with fentanyl deaths out here as much. The drug of choice out here is not opioids, it's meth. So we have much more meth than any opioids. So I mean, everything is going to be can be laced with fentanyl. So you never know, but yeah.
What are the social justice issues that you are working on in Montana right now? What
just housing, really. I mean, everywhere is concerned with housing. Recovery housing, which has housing, period. Lots of homelessness. I mean, Missoula we have a lot of people who are unhoused, just getting access to housing. I mean, people say it's expensive out here, but I mean, I lived out east, so I'm not really sure what that means. But there's not enough quantity out here. I believe my experience since the pandemic happened, everyone can work from home. You can overdose. You can call 911. They won't get arrested, at least in Montana. There's a lot of people from that demic like, oh, we can work from home. Let's move to Montana.
Right.
So the housing market just went like crap. I mean, it just was bad. No one could get housing or hardly any housing. So
now is all the recovery housing through the Department of Corrections?
Well, majority. I think there's a few that aren't, but only a handful.
Yeah. So are you working on getting it out of the
RC Montana Advocacy Project are working on, more on just see if the community is interested in that. There was a house that opened in Butte. The director said it really had a hard time opening them because the neighborhood didn't want them there.
NIMBY, not in my backyard.
We've heard this story many, many times. So they were, and interesting that the neighborhood they ended up in is a very, very nice, upstanding neighborhood. And they were like, come on in. And so, but other neighborhoods didn't want them to be, and it's zoning requirements and stuff like that. If we only have 3 people who are related can live in the same house. So it depends on zoning and stuff.
Have more than 4 unrelated females living in the same house.
Right. So there's zoning requirements and that kind of stuff. So.
Well, so this is, I love this topic because, of course, we're a recovery house provider here in Richmond. What are the challenges? I know, right? What are the challenges and the stigma that comes along with opening up a recovery housing, and what is the reality? Because I don't want to.
We know the reality. The reality is that people it's. The stats are against us in reality, people are in and out. It's just, I think the zoning is the biggest thing with most of the big cities of how many people can live in a facility that aren't related, and parking. We don't have a lot of on street parking. Most of them are garages and driveways. So parking is another. Can be an issue.
Yeah.
With simple stuff like that gets people tagged,
Well,
who's in charge? Who's in charge, right? Who's responsible for this? If it's not if we can't do it an Oxford House style, who's responsible for this abode, right? And who's going to be held accountable? And if there's no one person going to be held accountable, then that's actually the question that people I know are open. Who's responsible for this facility,
Well, these DOC houses, are these DOC houses run by authentic peers?
They're not. No, we have no peer recovery housing.
Oh my goodness,
that's one thing. And excluding there's church-based recovery housing. I have to say there are some faith-based, church-based recovery housing, but I think the 2 I know are for women with children.
Yeah,
and they're church-based. So. Yeah, so there are those ones are peer recoveries, but nothing like McShin.
Yeah. Well, that and that value, that authentic peer recovery value. We all work a 12-step fellowship, and I know that in the 12-step fellowships, the therapeutic value of one act helping another is without parallel, right? And that translates, translating that to the, I guess, outside community is, I don't want to use the word therapeutic because we're not clinical, but the value of one person in recovery helping the next person in recovery is without parallel. I think is another way to say that.
I think out here, from my experience, is that they think since everything's so, a lot of them is like, who's the authority figure? Like, who's the clinician?
Yeah.
And so peer recovery, so far when I discuss it, is not like, what is that? You don't have a therapist who's in charge or a psychologist who's in charge, or that kind of stuff. So it's, what does peer recovery mean? So it's fun, and they're like, oh, that sounds great, we love that idea. I'm like, okay, great. Maybe they don't have that as a means of recovery housing or recovery structure.
What do you think about that, Kyle? Would you live in a house that was run by a therapist or some kind of clinician?
I'll tell you this much. My first trip to recovery, which was a pain in the butt, because while I was getting high, I wanted to get myself help. So I applied for Medicaid because the rehabs are too expensive, and it takes so forever to join the CSB. I don't know if you guys have CSBs out there, but the first time I got into rehab, because I'd applied for Medicaid because Medicaid was supposed to cover it, and that was taking forever. I'm like, look, I'm going to die if I don't get help. So I had to join the CSB, and luckily the CSB put me into a rehab, and it was a clinical rehab called Boxwood. And I'm not knocking any kind of rehabs or
I've spoken there. I've spoken there a couple times.
Yep. And I'm not knocking any kind of rehabs or any place that's trying to help people. But for me personally, in my experience, somebody that's never been through what I've been through, it's harder for me to listen and take their advice when you don't know the shit that I've done and been through my addiction. Yes, they're there to help you. And like I said, I'm not knocking that kind of recovery, but I am able to learn more from somebody that's standing in front of me, that's been where I've been and has fought their way through it. I want to know how you did it, because you were where I'm at. And now look at you. It's hard for me to look at a clinician or a therapist and they're telling me what to do. And I'm like, what do you mean? You've never even been through, how would you know what to do? You don't have no experience through addiction, but that's just me. Now, not everything's for everybody, And I'm going to say, when I first did go to that rehab, I completed the 30 days and I stayed clean a year afterwards. So something worked. They taught me about my addiction, but, being able to come to McShin and being around people, everybody here that speaks to you and everybody that's teaching you something has been through that addiction. And it's so good to just be able to, because for me, I would have a problem telling my therapist all the dirty shit that I've done through my addiction. But when I come here, I can share it with a smile on my face, because I know I'm not going to be judged. You've been there too, and it's just a lot easier for me to get that off my chest and to take in more information from somebody that's been there, rather than, that's just my opinion.
I think multi pathways is always good. Sometimes the clinician work for some other people, and some the peer recovery works best. There was a question on harm reduction in Montana. So in Missoula, for example, we have an Alano Club where all the meetings are, and next door is the Open Day Lounge, which is their needle exchange. So there is a lot of harm reduction in Missoula. There's also, I believe, Great Falls has a chapter of the Church of Safe Injection that travels around the state. But I'm not sure if they were active. I saw them. I'm sure they're still active. So there outside of Missoula, I haven't really heard a lot of other harm reduction, including in Billings having Narcan training.
Yeah. To Jamie's first question, I do want to clarify something. In Virginia, if you call 911, the law that passed and goes into effect actually July 1st, means if you call and you are calling for an individual who is experiencing an overdose, you as the caller will not get arrested, and the person experiencing the overdose will not get arrested. Now, the new law that goes into effect July 1st also prevents the individual who might be assisting in giving aid, giving the Narcan to the individual overdosing who's not making the phone call. And it's just a little technicality, a little extra that had to be brought into the law because, wouldn't you know it, some cop somewhere in some backwoods place found a little loophole and still found a way to arrest somebody instead of giving help. So the law is right now you can call, and you will not be arrested for possession charge. You can, however, still be arrested for distribution. How does that affect an individual on probation? That is a good question that we don't have an answer for. I think that still needs to be worked out. So
yeah, I'm gonna look into that to see if they're revoked, because that's
for Montana and certainly
I would imagine that they would, but the law would be revoked. Right, yeah. Our law. I would imagine you would be revoked.
And we've got a lot of,
but I'm just.
Yeah. I would imagine. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to. I imagine that in Virginia, each of our each magisterial district or whatever, they're going to be able to. They're going to have a lot of latitude on how they choose. Each parole or probation office is probably going to have a lot of latitude, like they do now, on how they effectively, violate individuals. And because I know my experience in Warrenton was vastly different than what could have been here in Henrico County. Going to Jamie's other question. So community service boards, that's what a CSB is. Community services boards are, there are 40 CSBs throughout Virginia, and they are all, they're run by the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, and they are a resource for getting mental health and recovery or behavioral health services. Now, in Virginia, we have what's called STEP Virginia, which works towards getting same-day access to recovery services or to mental health, behavioral health services, excuse me. And you can go talk to the legislature and they'll laud the fact that, hey, we got same day access. The reality is they have same day assessment. So you can walk in and you can get assessed, but actually getting treated, getting into a recovery house, getting into something you need, it may actually take, if you're lucky, a few days. The reality is probably closer to a few weeks. And, as we know, an individual who's making that decision, hey, I need help, I need it now, that person needs the help right away, because you may not get another window.
Well, we just had a dude come here. I'm not going to say his name, but he came here 2 days ago and he had to fly all the way here from Maine because they did not have any rehab bed space or anything. He said it was a 90-day wait just to get a bed open. So he flew all the way down here from Maine.
Does Virginia have a limit on beds that can be covered by Medicaid? Because Montana has 12. You can only have 12 Medicaid patients in, no matter how big the facility is, at a time. So if you're on Medicaid, you can only have 12 people, and there's beds in some facilities that are empty because they don't have enough paid people, and there's too many Medicaid. So I don't know if Virginia has anything like limit of Medicaid patients per facilities, but Montana has that.
We here in Virginia, a lot is changing with Medicaid beds, and McShin doesn't take Medicaid, so I actually don't know much about that. I do know that there are some new houses coming up, and things have changed, and I know that more needs to happen, as always, but things have changed, and it seems like, for my friends who are part of that, part of running these houses, that there's a little more latitude and acceptance of the authentic peer recovery model. Yeah. But more will be revealed, as they say.
As they say.
And I want to now, one thing about what you were just talking about, Kyle, that specific program, Operation Hope, that comes out of Maine. They don't have the resources in Maine, so what they've done there, and I think this is one of the coolest things here in McShin, is what they've done is in Maine is that you can go to, in certain places in Maine, you can go to a police station, a firehouse, and say, hey, I need help. And they will detox you, or they're supposed to detox you. I don't think he got detoxed, but they're supposed to detox you. And then you can, I believe you have a few different choices, but you can choose to go to places all around the country. I know that McShin is one of those places as part of Operation Hope in Maine. And we've had great success with individuals who've flown and come here. In fact, we've had people on staff, several people who are still living in the Richmond area who maintain their recovery. In fact, you don't know this, but the person I was talking to you about earlier, he comes from the same program that the other individual did. So, finding that's why we have these conversations with other states, because we might not have the resources in Virginia, but you might have the resources in Maine or Montana, and you may not have the resources in Montana, but we might be able to help you in Virginia. That's why we need to stay connected like this. And so man, I see that we're at 51 minutes here, but I do want to quickly I know Robert, I know you want to talk about all these amazing things, and what was up there besides peer recovery? That one. Besides peer support recovery, Jamie asks, besides peer support recovery specialists, what is a good way and/or role to better assist others in recovery? This is a great question. Lela, what do you think?
Well, I think just being there, maybe a phone call away. And we don't have to be a specialist in anything. We can just be a person in recovery as well. I just invite them. I mean, I'm partial to walks. It's like invite them for a walk.
It's awesome though.
I'm not gonna make them walk 27 miles, but like just or sit outside, have some coffee, just like tea or whatever. Just reach out to people. I a lot of people just don't. They're like, newcomer calls me. If I have a newcomer's phone number, I'll always reach out occasionally and be like, hey, what's up? We're gonna be here. We're gonna do this. You want to come? Like now that the pandemic is waning, there's more things to do outside, and it's summertime in Montana, which doesn't happen but like 3 months a year. So we're outside. So that's what I would do. I just reach out to people and be like, hey, before walk, let's have coffee, like hit a meeting. We're all gonna be here after we have dinner or something like that. So
yeah. What do you think?
Well, in all reality, we're all specialists in one thing, our addiction. We don't got to have a certification to be an addict. So in all reality, like they say, the therapeutic value of one addict helping others unparalleled. Just being there for somebody, like she said, being able to be that person that, if they're struggling, they can call, just to be a friend, a shoulder to cry on, an ear to listen. Sometimes that could save somebody's life, and you don't realize that. It's the little things like that for us addicts, to where, because I know I've been through it before. I've wanted to use, and then called my sponsor, and he called me an idiot. So what are you doing? Come to pick me up and take me to IHOP after a meeting. The cliche stuff, and that's the kind of stuff that saved my life. And sometimes it's the little things, just to be there. Like, hey, I know when I had my network and I was going to meetings, I'd miss one meeting, I'd have about 5 or 6 people calling me like, dude, where are you at? What are you doing? Why aren't you at this meeting? Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I had to work. It's all right. I'll be there tomorrow. You know what I mean? So it's people to hold us accountable. We need to hold each other accountable, because nobody else is going to do it. It's on us to save each other's lives.
I meant to say something that I wanted to say, like my religious tradition. So it involves a lot of drinking. And so the rabbi here, last year we had like a sober Seder for Passover and a sober like Purim, which is like your holiday you get really drunk at. And so there's a lot of stuff out here in the Jewish community out here in Missoula that don't revolve all the traditional stuff about drinking. So it's it's very progressive out here, even in Montana, when there's like very small Jewish population out here. And they're really in tune to recovery issues, at least in the community in Missoula, and it's amazing. So I just had to shout that out, because out there I didn't have that. So
yeah, we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I really appreciate this robust conversation in the chat over here. Patrick, I appreciate you, and we can talk more, because I know Patrick. We're good friends, and I know actually everybody over here I know pretty well. But I do want to say for both of you, really appreciate having you both on the show today. Grateful for the opportunity to hear what you have to say and share with you. Excited to know more about what's going on in Montana.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting more information out to you guys. I need to call you. I need a McShin shirt. Mine got lost.
Well, we can do that. We can can do that.
Actually, I let someone borrow it because I needed a shirt, and then they like went out, and I don't know where they are in the world. So a newer member. So yeah,
I've gained 50 pounds since I got to McShin, so none of my shirts from the beginning fit anymore.
Yeah, no, I let someone borrow it because they needed it was a long sleeve red shirt. So.
Oh, yeah. I remember those. I haven't seen one of those in a while, but I remember I've seen.
It was very sad, and they left us and didn't come back. So.
Well, Lela, the Recovery Fest is happening again this year. We did it last year, and we did it on a very small scale. But this year we're doing it. It's actually
that's exciting.
Yeah, it's September 11th, which of course is the 20th. 20th, not anniversary, but I guess 20th.
These gave me like, really?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think we're going to be sensitive all the way around with that, and as a person who was in DC when that happened,
who's the speaker? Do they know you?
I have no idea. We'll probably have it's every year's election.
You guys get big names out there.
Yeah, we'll get. Yeah, I'm not sure what yet was going to happen. I'm not even sure if we're going to do the barbecue cook-off yet. Honesty might be listening right now, and she's probably thinking, Nathan, you know better. But the reality is, we just had our Memorial Day cookout, so we had our first little.
I saw the pictures. That's amazing.
And, yeah, our first little foray
into a dance party or something.
Oh, it was a blast. Justin got new speakers, and we were able to blast. So anyway, we are definitely...
I saw pictures of Carol dancing.
Carol's amazing, isn't she? What do you have, before we sign off, do you have any last thoughts, suggestions?
No, I'm just really happy to be here, grateful to be alive. And thanks for McShin for helping me in that process. And I'm just grateful. And Kyle, I'm glad you're here. Please keep coming back and keep coming on. So it's really good to share the stage with all y'all today. Thank you so much.
Awesome to have you. Kyle, any last thoughts, words? How did that feel for you?
To be honest with you, I was scared to death. I mean, I have social anxiety, and you dropped this on me, and I was like, you know what? I need to get out of my box. I'm glad I'm here, and I'm glad I came to do this, because it really, in the end, this is the stuff that helps me, because I need to be able to talk to people. And I'm just glad for Lela, glad to be here, glad you invited me to do this, and I hope I can come back because this is fun.
Good. That's awesome. Well, thanks for being here, and thank you, Lela. I'll talk more. And Justin, as always, thank you for being an amazing producer, and to everybody who watched. We will see you all next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, we have guests to talk about a project that we've been working on. You know what? I'm going to let you find this on Facebook because it's a lot to explain, but I'll tell you, it's going to be some interesting stuff. Really great facts, really great work that's been being done on the national level to get out some information about what do people in recovery actually want as desired outcomes, and talking peers in recovery, discussing outcomes that are important for peers in recovery, instead of just looking clinicians saying, hey, you need to tick this box and tick that box. Then we have next week, on the 10th, we have Jeff Breedlove and Deanna's last name, I don't have my thing in front of me, but we have a nice conversation about what's going on with the money situation. Well, we have money for recovery, for some people in recovery doing amazing work in Georgia and in California. So that'll be an interesting conversation next Thursday. And then, of course, we have Wednesday, Women's Day, and I know Joyce and Dixie are going to make it awesome. So thank you all for listening. Have a great weekend, and take care. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.
Here at McShin, we believe in the McShin way, which is authentic recovery support service providers, people with lived experience, bringing that experience to those who need that lived experience in recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in many things to support our mission. We believe in women empowerment.
What I love most about what we believe here at McShin is we believe in the authenticity of the peer-to-peer approach.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in giving people opportunity.
Here at McShin, we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
At the McShin Foundation, we believe in helping people reach their full potential.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in multiple pathways to recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in placing principles before personalities to help spread hope.
Here at McShin, we believe that recovery is possible and that any person seeking recovery can become a more acceptable, responsible, and productive member of society.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in self-discovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in saving lives and offering second chances.
Here at McShin, we believe you can do this.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe that we can only keep what we have by giving it away, which is why we continue to help others like us seek and find recovery.
Any place.